Hello everyone, today let's take a look at MLEM Space Agency, which is a brand new push your luck style game from Reiner Knizia and Rebel Studios, and just know Asmodee did send it to me for this video. Well, in this push your luck game you are cat astronauts trying to get into outer space. Let's work out roughly how the game plays and then I'll give you some pros and cons on it. In MLEM, you are going to be the commander, getting cats onto a rocket, blasting them via rolling dice as far as you can. Why? Because the further into space you go, pretty much the more points it's worth. The moons slightly lower down, well, they're worth 1 or 2 points. The moons at the end are maybe 3 or 4 points. And the planets also go up in value as well. So basically, you want to push your luck as far as you can and you think the dice will allow you before you get off. You don't want to risk it any further. How it all works is on a turn, one player is going to be the commander. They get to board first and choose one of their 8 cats. The cats have different abilities, but we'll touch on that in a little bit. Everyone boards with one of their cats and then the commander starts rolling the dice. Let's take a look at the number 0 spot on the track, which is mostly where it's going to be starting from. For that starting spot, when you roll the dice as the commander, you're looking for the afterburner symbol, you're looking for 1s and 2s. So you roll the dice, you group all the numbers up, effectively you can push the 3s and 4s to one side, they're not going to be any good, and then you can choose what you're going to spend. Afterburners are never used up, so you can freely use those, but if you're using any of the numbers, those dice are spent for the rest of the round, so you won't be able to roll them sort of in future turns as you're going up this track. So you have to make a decision of how many of the dice do I really want to spend to push myself up the track. But let's say in this example you're on that first spot and you've rolled 2 2s, well, you can use both of them and that's going to push you up 4 spaces. Basically, for every pip, that's a space you go up. That might not be much movement on some spaces, it allows the 3 or the 4, so maybe you roll 3 4s and you move up 12 spaces, but you are then spending those 4 dice. When you get to space 6 on the track and above, then things get a little bit more interesting as you have the chance to get off. The choice starts with the commander and then goes round the table, and that's because some things fill up, some don't. If it's a moon, well, they do fill up, and you take the most valuable one at that sort of point. If you get off at a planet, you don't get instant points, but whoever's got the majority on a planet, they're going to get the most points from that space at the end of the game. And, well, if there's a tiebreaker, it's whoever decided to get off onto that planet first in the game. So maybe I got off first but I only have 1 cat, someone else got there second and has 2 cats in total, and then another player gets there and has 2 cats in total as well. Even though I was there first, they've got like majority because they've got 2s, so I'd be getting the last place, and then the person that decided to get off onto that planet next, they're going to get the majority because they've got the biggest number that did it first. But potentially no one has decided to get off, so you're going to roll the remaining dice that you've got and hopefully move on from that space and push up the track. The higher planets being worth more, the higher moons being worth more. This is going to go until one of 3 things happens, basically. The rocket crashes when you roll the dice and none of the numbers can be used, and at that point the cats are returned to their player boards. They're not exploded, don't worry, but basically it moves the rocket crash tracker up 1 and then the next round happens. If everyone's got off, well, everyone's got off, everyone's happy, and they've hopefully got somewhere that's going to score them points. The last thing is, if you get to the very top of the track, everyone's going to disembark into outer space and be very happy because that's worth a lot of points. When one of these things occurs, the rocket board is then going to be passed to the next player. They become the commander for the next round, starting the boarding off onto that rocket, and then they're going to be rolling the dice and trying to push up that track as far as they can. So over the course of the game, you're going to be collecting points for the moons, you're going to get points for the sort of planet landings at the end, whoever's got the majority on each of the planets. There's also some sort of bonus things. So if you're the first person to get a cat down onto 4 different planets, 4 different moons, 3 cats onto the same planet, or 2 into outer space, which is the very end of the track, you're going to get a bonus 5 points for doing that first. It doesn't mean you're going to be the only person that does it. You might be, but 5 bonus points is a pretty good win. The game ends when the rockets crash too many times, or one player has deployed all 8 of their cats onto the board. And at that point, well, the game is over. You're counting up points to see who wins. Let's start with the obvious sort of oddity of the game, the theming, because, well, cats being astronauts going into space, does it really all make sense? Well, it's twofold. I do think that the rocket sort of going up into space sort of makes sense. You are pushing your luck to try and get as far along this track, and it kind of makes sense when the dice don't work that the rocket stops working and crashes back to the planet. You don't get off and stuff like that. That kind of does make some sense, but why cats? Why cats? I think it's just because they're a cute animal and, well, it doesn't detract from the experience. It makes it stand out in a visual way. I really love how the planets themselves are even cat-themed as well, not just the astronauts. The first planet is like a goldfish bowl. The second planet is like a wall, like a ball of wool. One is like a scratching post sort of texture to the look of it. So, yeah, I think they've done a good job of somehow putting cats and astronauts and squishing them together. Does the cat part make any sort of sense to why you're doing this? Not really, but it's a fun theme. What I can definitely say, alongside that and sort of way that artwork brings the theme out, is the production quality overall is really strong. You've got this lovely long neoprene mat that rolls out across the table for you to play on. You've got like a wooden ship token that you're going to be moving up. You've got some great sort of tiles that are like cat treat themed, like actually to score the points with. And I think that all looks really stunning on the table. It's almost too good, because then it does mean there's one token in the game that tracks that crashes at the bottom of the neoprene mat, and it almost feels like it gets lost because it is a smaller token and it hasn't got that wood treatment. It just feels a little odd that that's sort of just a chit, but it's a nice production quality. As with any good push your luck game, when you're rolling those dice, that pool of dice is slowly shrinking as you get further and further. It's riskier and riskier to roll the dice, push your luck, and hopefully get the bigger points. There's a real buzz around the table when you're doing that. And it's not like in other games when other players don't care what you're doing on your turn, because they're on the rocket with you too. If you're the commander and you have a bad roll that means none of the dice can be used, well, it's going to affect all of the other players that are on that ship with you. It's not like, oh, well, your ship's gone down because you pushed your luck too much. No, maybe they start thinking, oh, I should have got off on that last moon that we were at. I knew I shouldn't have stayed on and pushed my luck with you. So I like that around the table, you do sort of have a group logic of, we all want this roll to be good, unless you've got off. And then you're like, well, I've decided the risk is too much. You've got like 66% chance of exploding the rocket. I don't think you're going to manage that roll with only 1 dice remaining. And then they pull it off and you're sat there on the moon going, oh, if I'd have gone with the risk with the rest of you, then maybe I would have got more points out of this. And there's some nice caveats there, because it starts to be like, oh, well, the commander's not getting off, they're not getting off. I don't want to risk it. But if they're risking it, maybe I should. And that's sort of that extra choice. If you're not a fan of things that make you sort of double think, double question your choices, well, any push your luck game might not be for you, especially MLEM, because it really does make you think, am I making the right choice? Every turn there's that opportunity of guess off, get some points, but there's the allure of more points further up the track, and I really do like that. And, well, I normally say I don't like dice too much because they add too much luck into a game, but MLEM is all about that luck. It's not really got anything outside of the luck and the choice of, are you going to push your luck? It's not tried to be part of a much bigger, longer game. No, the choices are very quick, simple. Stay on, get off. Do you want to risk the next dice roll? And that means you can push your luck. It's quick, it's fast, it's fun, but everyone's kind of involved as well. As I alluded to in the rules, the cats have different abilities. Now, this was something I was a little worried about at the start. Certainly teaching the game, you have to be very much sort of a tactical, put a cat onto a ship, and we'll just explain the abilities in a bit, because you do need to explain to brand new players sort of how the game works in terms of rolling the dice, getting off onto the planets or the moons. You need to explain that before you explain any of the cat abilities. So I was a little worried that there's 8 different cat abilities. Is that going to make this a complicated teach or game to play? Not really. Even for people that had not played the game before, when I was teaching it, sort of very like one play under my belt, teaching the game, well, for me, the powers were absolutely fine and easy to understand from the symbology. Like, there's one where it's got like a satellite. That means if any of the cats on the rocket have that satellite icon, it starts from space like 3 on the track instead of 0. There's another one that has like a cat with a plus or minus 1 on it. And that means when it's stopped and it's like, do you want to get off? You could get off there, or one higher or lower. Well, there's another one where a cat has a parachute. Oh, this rocket's crashed. You can parachute off onto wherever we're next to, be that a planet or a moon, if there's space. You can do that before it crashes, so you still get off that round, which means you maybe are more likely to be pushing your luck, because even if it crashes, I can get off onto something that's scoring points. And there's a variety of others that maybe like double the points you're getting for a moon, for being in outer space on a planet. Actually, when you start playing within a couple of rounds, because people often play different cats, like onto the rocket, you'll have seen most of the powers within 2 rounds, and all of a sudden, you know how everything works, and it's super simple, to be honest. Like, I was very worried. 8 powers, that's going to be a lot to teach for people to take in straight away, but actually I found people picked it up super quickly and easily. And this is where the micro expansions into the box come into the mix. I don't think they're really necessary, certainly not for your first couple of games, but then when you've played with the same group a few times, you might want to introduce them. And, well, you could even maybe introduce a couple of them with brand new players. My favourite of the bunch has to be the secret missions, because they don't add much, but they just add a new scoring option and maybe change some of your choices in the game. Effectively, at the start of the game, you're going to get 4 of these tiles that say you want to put a cat onto this specific moon or this specific planet. So like, oh, you need to get to space 13 or 14 and get off and put a cat onto that planet, that sort of thing. If you do that, you can reveal it, and it's going to be worth more points to you. Like, that's going to be worth some points for completing that secret mission. It's just a nice little extra that I do think new players could actually handle. And, well, it just means sometimes you do get off. You don't push your luck, because I'm completing my secret mission. And maybe that's worth more than pushing up the track to get to that higher spot. The other expansions maybe add tiles to the track that could score you points, or potentially even moves like the ship up the track, which just sort of adds to the choices but doesn't really change the core game. So overall, I rather enjoyed MLEM Space Agency. It's a push your luck game with some very nice production. I don't necessarily think that the cat theming was necessary, but it's at least been done well, with the sort of smush between space and cat sort of really come across nicely on like the board with the planets, and it sort of adds a bit of a cuteness factor to the experience. As with any good push your luck game, it doesn't overcomplicate itself, though there are those nice little expansions, those micro expansions, just to throw into the mix, just to vary things up. The things that really sell the game are, you're always involved and sort of invested in what's happening when the dice are being rolled. Whether you're on the ship hoping that the commander's rolling well and you're going to be able to get to a higher points value, or you've just got off and you're almost hoping that the dice cause the ship to crash. I really like the different powers that the cats have, so every time you're boarding you're effectively like putting on a different ability. Maybe it's scoring double points for a moon or whatever. I like that. I thought it was going to be too complex. It turned out not to be, and a really great feature of the game. So there you have it. Hopefully this review has helped you know if MLEM Space Agency is going to be a game for your collection, or maybe it's pushed its luck too much with you. If you found this review helpful, let us know in the comments section below. If you've played the game, was I right, was I wrong? Also fill us in the comments, and until next time, have a MLEM-filled good day.